We are born free.
And we will die free.
The time in between, though,
That's complicated.
in that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Finding Freedom right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. And man, I got another great show lined up for you guys today. Before we get to it, just want to remind everyone, if you've been listening to the show for a while, or even if this is your first or second time listening and you like what you hear, please, we would really appreciate it if you would consider going to iTunes or whatever app you're listening to this on. Give it a 5-star review, give it a 5-star rating, and leave us a nice little review. Would be appreciated. And hit that subscribe button. I mean, with what Mark on his Monday show, Brian on his Wednesday show with Electric Liberty Land, and myself on Thursdays with Finding Freedom, what we try to deliver to you is the best value you can get in a variety show type podcast. And we're bringing you, great interviews on Monday with leaders in philosophy and the Liberty Movement and entrepreneurship. And Wednesday, Brian McWilliams is giving one of the most unique takes on culture and current events and putting his comedic spin on things. Just a great show. And myself on Thursday, of course, what I've tried to do recently with my change is expand and really look at life as a whole, not just the criminal justice system, but through business ownership and through different things that we can do in our lives to apply the principles of liberty and overcome obstacles and find freedom in our own life. That's my goal with this show. So please support us. If you haven't yet, really consider even supporting us and becoming a patron. We have some great giveaways, great stuff that you get access to, bonus content, stuff like that, all kinds of merchandise, depending on the level that you join. Access at our Nittany level and above, you get to actually produce a show and tell us what you want us to talk about. So check that out, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And I really hope you guys enjoy today's show. I got a really awesome guest for you today. All right, my guest today, I am joined by Himanshu Shekhar. Himanshu lives in India, and we were connected by a mutual friend, of course, a friend of Lions of Liberty that you all know, Anthony Samerhoff. And Himanshu, he's here to share about the devastating impact of the COVID lockdowns on his business and on other aspects of life in India. Past couple of weeks, I've brought on people in the United States, business owners, who have talked about the effects on their business. And I think not just with COVID, but with really business in general and with the way we do things in the United States, I think we get locked in a bubble. I think this will be very helpful to learn, especially in these trying times, about how people are impacted differently or maybe in the same way with things like the COVID lockdowns. So, Himanshu, welcome to Finding Freedom.
Thank you, John, for having me over here, and thanks, Anthony, for introducing us. It's great.
Yes, and Anthony has been on our Lions of Liberty show several times, and he's a great guy. So as soon as he reached out to me and told me about your situation and about the situation in India, I jumped at the opportunity to have you on. So before we get into really talking about the lockdowns and your business and just general life in India, how it is right now and how it's been impacted by the lockdowns and by COVID, if you could just share, just to give my audience an idea about yourself and about life in India, if you could kind of just give some background on yourself.
Great. So I'm Himanshu Shekhar. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I did my graduation and my studies in finance and corporate law, but later on I found that my passion is into stories and travel. So I started traveling across India, and as you know, India is a subcontinent in itself. Like, doesn't matter wherever you go, it's completely different in terms of its language, culture, art, people, and that kind of attracted me towards what this whole thing really is, rather than sitting in just one cabin and doing the same thing every 3 months and every 6 months. So that's how slowly I started getting into India and its stories. I cycled across India in 2015 and 16 to learn more about it. And then finally, I decided to be in travel industry because that's a place where I can have a really good balance between the outdoor life and the indoor life. So it was 2016 when I completely jumped into the travel sector, the travel business. Started doing really nice cycle tours in Delhi known as Delhi Bicycle. Also launched a really nice initiative known as Gyan Yatra, where we used to take people on the journeys or the trips where they can learn more from traveling. So we started doing these different initiatives, different experiments in travel, started creating new experiences, started working on the side of the sustainable tourism as well. And I co-founded Sustainable Travel Network in 2018 with a couple of friends of mine. So everything was going amazing. It was like, any early or late 20-year-old guy who is into entrepreneurship and want to do something, especially in a developing country like India, where now dreams are coming true, whatever we can imagine, rather than the generation of our parents who compromised a lot on different things. We were the generation who really saw India changing, starting from 1990s to right now. So there was a really big, faith and motivation that we can do anything, whatever we want. And in this way, this whole entrepreneurship thing was helping us until obviously pollution in Delhi and COVID started impacting us.
Just to backtrack to give my audience and myself a better picture of some of these changes in India from your parents' generation to your generation, can you give some examples of some of those things that you've seen change?
Oh yeah, a lot actually. So my parents, they're from generation of 1970s and 60s. And obviously, India was a closed economy till 1990s. So as you know, because India closed its gates again in 1970s, so when my parents were growing up, they never saw anything really happening in India. For everything, if you want to do any business, you have to get like 100 different licenses. So entrepreneurship was a big, far off dream. But finally, when India opened up its gate for the world economy and the globalization in 1990s or 1991 to be precise, things started changing up. And that was the year when I was 1 year old, maybe a few months. And then slowly all these changes started happening across different sectors in India, different industries in India. The gates started opening up for doing business, this whole entrepreneurship, because Indians in general, we are kind of people who are good into business. But obviously, we were not allowed to do business for a really long period of time, especially after the independence of India and all these licenses, which used to stop us from doing different things. So starting from 1991, when the gates opened and liberalization and globalization happened, we finally were able to do our own business, get onto the world, have global currencies over here. The Indian currency is well to with the market value rather than what it is going to be fixed at. So there are a lot of small factors which helped. And now starting from, as you know, that one of the biggest reasons that why India became an IT superpower is that India opened up its gate to the world. And people started coming in, the foreign investment started coming in, and now India is one of the biggest countries to receive foreign investments in the world. So that's how I think we saw things happening. Like when we started growing up, we never saw the phones coming in our home, like those line phones with the wires. It was straight from nothing to mobile phones for us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we never saw that happening on a mass level. Obviously, there used to be those phones with super rich people. But in general, India never saw that revolution of phones in home. It was straight from zero to mobile phone. So that is what I'm telling you. Like, we are the people who lived the generations of 1970s and 80s as well, in initial 90s. And now we are living the generation which is quite equal to the people of my age in Western countries.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. How technology it's able to almost just skipped sort of in India and probably many developing countries like that. But that's interesting thing to reflect on. So just to zero in on entrepreneurship for a minute and your own personal journey, at what age? I mean, you're seeing this change happen in India, these opportunities opening up. At what age do you remember, like a specific time or a moment or something that happened that made you really decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Actually a lot of factors. One of the biggest factor was my dad was in Indian Air Force, and when he left Indian Air Force, a lot of things started changing up. Like, he came out in the civil world, and obviously there was a scarcity of job. And I literally saw him in 3 months. He literally went all across India to find one single job, and he was not able to get it. And this is the year 2003.
Wow.
And that was the time when I was 13 or 14. So I decided that this is something which we really need to work on, and I'm not gonna do like I'm going to be someone who's going to create job opportunities rather than looking for it, because the kind of difficulty my dad faced is because there are not enough opportunities out there in the market. And that's what I literally saw. Like I was someone who was really good with computers, so I used to send like his biodatas almost every week to 10 different countries so that he can get the next better job and all these things. Believe me, I'm sending biodatas for my dad since the age of 13, since 2003. So I saw this happening and it was not just with my dad, it was with a lot of people across India. And that is what made me realize that whatever will happen, I'm not gonna, and that's why I told you, like, I worked for one of the call centers in my university days for 15 days. And that was it. I was like, I'm not going to do that again. That was, I think, a big motivation for me, which kind of pushed me and a lot of people around India in some ways or other, that hey, we are gonna do something on our own. We are gonna be someone who is gonna create the opportunities rather than go out and looking for it.
It's very
So I
interesting.
started my first company. Yeah, I started my first company at the age of 20, which was an advertisement and media based company, helping small brands in small cities to design and develop advertisement so that they can compete with bigger brands.
Mhm.
So that was
So,
the age of 20.
so you mentioned that there's been some deregulation that has allowed this to happen. You mentioned that there were a lot of different licenses you used to have to get in the past, and that's
Right.
gone away. How difficult is it to start a business in India?
Now it
Yeah,
is not.
now.
Because I'm also from the background of corporate law. So I used to help companies to start their things in India. And it used to be really difficult when I started way back with my work in 2011 and 12. But slowly we saw this great movement happening. Now you can start a company in India in 7 days. Before there were regulation that you need minimum 2 directors to start a company. Now you can start a company with 1 person as well. Now we also have the provisions of limited liability partnerships. So you can also start these partnerships while still being in a limited liability position. Obviously, now everything is on computer and online. So you can start a company while sitting anywhere in India or anywhere in the world. And these things used to not be over there at all. Even in early 2000s, if you want to start a company in India, it minimum used to take 50 to 60 days. And now everything is possible within 7 to 10 days. So things are changing at a really fast speed. I'll say that government and the whole environment is becoming much more startup friendly, and more young people are coming into this whole arena. So it is helping us a lot to make this whole process faster.
What about with regards to taxation? Or what's the just, and we don't have to go into details here. I do want to spend a lot of time on COVID, but I'm trying to give everyone an idea of the differences, business differences. So like, what's the tax structure like in India for an entrepreneur compared to for an employee? Is there a lot of benefit to be an entrepreneur? Do you get a lot of tax breaks, or is it not so much?
So actually, it's not. If you look at from a technical point of view, there's not a really big difference to be an entrepreneur and to be someone who is employed. Because at the end, entrepreneurs end up paying more taxes in a way, in some ways or other. It is, I think, I'll say more of a freedom which gives entrepreneurs the kind of life which we want. Because still the regulations regarding the labor laws, and if you're not working with a really good company, it's not that great. So I think there are some benefits apart from taxations which help entrepreneur to be entrepreneur, because it's still an employment. You get, most of the people are not even getting paid enough, like according to the regulations which is there in the books. So and taxation wise, I think we end up paying almost equal, being entrepreneur or being an employee.
Okay. That's good background. I just wanted to give people an idea. So turning to COVID and the lockdowns, I think COVID first hit in India about the same time, roughly, as the United States,
Yes.
or at least blew up. So this was a little over a year ago, and just take us through, what was the environment like, the reaction to from the government. How were lockdowns implemented, and how was your business impact? That's a lot to answer, so just kind of take it whatever you want
to break it in different levels. So COVID started over here in Feb, but the Indian government was waiting because the president of US was coming over here on a really big campaign. And so that's why the government waited till the time he's back to his country. And the moment he went back, so everyone in India was aware that COVID cases are already there in India, but the government was not announcing it officially because there was this massive rally of Trump, which was about to happen in Feb. So everyone just waited. And we all were aware that the day he will go back, the next day we are going to get in our media that, hey, we have COVID cases in India now. And that's exactly what had happened. So then we started getting these COVID cases, but the government was still not that serious. They were like, oh, it's not a pandemic, it's not an epidemic. Like, we need not to be that serious. It's manageable. But obviously there were experts who were warning the government starting from January and December, because if it is going to happen in India, it is going to be big because of the population and the congested amount of spaces which we have in India. So that's what happened, and slowly it started growing. And obviously by the March end, everyone was aware that it's spreading at a really high speed. And again, I think another mistake which we did at the March end in terms of our government is that we did a complete lockdown like Western countries without taking in consideration that there are millions of laborers who are going to stuck in these massive metro cities of India. And if they will not have money, they are not going to survive even a week, because these laborers, these guys they work in unorganized sectors. So they earn their money by the day and they spend it by evening, and they again earn their money by the day and spend it by evening. So they are not in an organized sector to have specific amount of money. A lot of them, they even don't have bank accounts to receive direct benefits from the government. So what happened is that we got a nationwide lockdown with just a notice of 4 hours. And that was around in March, last weeks of March. And what happened is, like, for a week, everyone stayed in the home, even these unorganized laborers.
Was the lockdown, sorry to interrupt, but was the lockdown, was it strictly enforced?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a kind of lockdown, and India never saw anything like that before, right? So we have people who are always outdoors, who are always outgoing. And we never saw anything like that. So it started with a one-day rehearsal, you can say, which our Prime Minister called the public curfew. So it was a 12-hour public curfew. No one was allowed on the road, just to give an impression. And the same night, he came on the national television by 8 p.m. and he was like, hey, we are going to have a national lockdown starting from 12 in the midnight today. So it was a notice of 4 hours for a nationwide lockdown. Wow. The literally whole India was shut, stuck. Whatever was there, it was stuck. Like, we never imagined happening like that, because there are millions of, like, literally millions of migratory laborers who were stuck in these cities, hospital equipments, medical equipments, like hundreds of different factors which we never took into consideration before putting this nationwide lockdown. Every single city was shut. And the thing where we went wrong is that we just copied the Western model. But in West, it was really easy to do lockdowns because the population is segregated into small countries, not like 1 billion plus people in one single country, right? And obviously, it was easy for Western countries to get the benefits straight into the bank account if people are stuck somewhere. But that was not the case in India. But somehow people had their calm. People waited for 15 days. But when they finally extended these lockdown for more than 15 days, these laborers, they literally came out from their home and started walking towards the nearest bus stands or train stations. Because I also live in New Delhi. I left it just a few months ago, but I used to live in New Delhi, and I used to live quite close to a interstate bus terminus. And there I saw that how these laborers started walking in lines, and these lines used to be of miles.
Wow.
And yeah, like those pictures were horrendous. Like when these people started walking in front of my home without food, without water, everyone you can imagine in these big cities started coming on the road, started giving them food, water. The pictures and news are really bad and horrible. People were not able to sleep. Even I was not able to sleep for 4 days. Like literally, I was not able to sleep for even 5 minutes.
Just because of so many people walking by where you live.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was emotionally a really big burden. And we just did whatever best we can. But you know what? We were also suffering because our business was shut and we were running out of finances. Everything was so quick. It was kind of the days we never expected in our life, but it happened. But no one was talking about these migratory laborers at that point of time. And then what happened when they reached the nearest bus stands or the railway stations? There was no buses because it was a nationwide lockdown. They started walking towards their home, which is like 300 miles, 400
Wow.
miles,
And they had
800
no
miles.
food, no water, unless people gave them
No
stuff,
food,
right?
no water.
Wow.
Yeah, it was only people who were helping them on the roads. People of different cities, they were coming out and giving them their own rations, giving them their own
Wow.
rice, biscuits, water, food, milk, whatever they can help with. So it was the general public who was coming on the street to help these migratory laborers who literally walked more than 400, 500, 800 miles. There are media stories that how a girl literally cycled from New Delhi to a small village like around 500 miles east from New Delhi with her father sitting on the back, and she literally rode that cycle almost 1,000 kilometers, 1,200 kilometers. And this is just one story.
How many? I mean, I hate to ask, but has it been reported how many people died from that?
Died on those roads?
Yeah.
More than, see, the official reports are really less. But the road accidents which happened during that period of time when the country was in entire lockdown is more than 200,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. A lot of people, like there is one incident that these laborers, they were walking from one of the towns in central India towards their village somewhere in east. And because they were not aware about the roads, so they were just walking along with the railway tracks because they were aware that these railway tracks will take them straight to their home. Doesn't matter if it is 500 or 600 kilometers. And they were aware that trains are also not running. So they were just sleeping on that railway tracks because that was the safest place and the cleanest place to sleep. And then suddenly there was a train with goods and more than 20 people died. So, and then that's like the incidences which happened, which made our nights sleepless. And this is just one of the few incidents which happened. But this, this migrant crisis which happened in India last year and kind of went unnoticed is one of the biggest migrant movement which happened, I'll say, in the last few decades.
So, fast forward what happened the rest of the year. How long did India stay locked down for in that state? Or nationwide, I should say.
Nationwide, it was around more or less 2 months. But then there were still like lockdowns and restrictions in phased manner, and which we started getting over from, I will say, August or September.
And have those, laborers who left the cities and gone to the villages, have they returned to the cities, or have a lot stayed in their villages?
A lot of them stayed back in their villages. I'll say the return rate is around 30 to 40%. But again, with these numbers going up again in India, like yesterday we had more than 300,000 infections in one single day. Again, with these numbers going up in India, a lot of them, and restrictions started getting bigger and stricter. A lot of them started moving back to their village. So we got almost the same picture again after a year, just 2 days ago.
Well, what do you think has led to this recent spike? I mean, I'm from the thinking, of watching this virus in different countries throughout the world that honestly, it's just going to do what it's going to do. And there's all these lockdowns and mask mandates that governments put into practice. But I mean, you look at the data, you look at the trends over time, and it's like it's meaningless. But what's your perspective on that?
So see, what happened in India is that, as you know, that there are a lot of things happening in India. Maybe you are aware, maybe you are not aware. Right now with the government which is running India is a right-wing government, and a lot of different things are happening on a political level, which I will not go because I'm someone who is into the center of the political feelings. But so what happened in India is like we started having these state elections. So in India we have around 29 states, and we started having these state elections where we are going to choose the government which is going to run those states. And these elections started happening from October. So these parties which are ruling these states, or they wanted to do the campaigns and all these massive rallies. So they wanted to show that, okay, everything is normal in India now, and now we can get back to these massive rallies. Now we can. So the institutions started making the whole situation look normal. These leaders started coming on these big stages with millions of people in front of them to do these rallies. Because I don't know if it's something similar which happens in states where you get people into the stadium and the leaders talk about it. So something similar happens in India as well, that these leaders make a big stage and talk about what they're going to do for the state for the next 5 years. So these rallies started happening in different states, and millions of people started coming out there in these rallies. So these states, these institutions, our government and leaders made this whole thing really look normal for everyone. And one state after another, there are constant elections happening. And you know what? The irony is that there are elections still happening in India in 2 or 3 states. And the Home Minister of India did 3 massive rallies today. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And the numbers, these infection numbers, they are not coming from the states where these elections are happening. So the numbers are being controlled by the government right now in the states where elections are happening, so that they will say that, okay, there are no infection rate in these states, so we can go ahead and do these election rallies. But yeah, rest of the states in the country where elections are not happening, we can show numbers from these states.
Yeah, so it's probably even much higher than what's being reported.
Much higher than what is being reported.
So has a vaccine rollout begun in India?
Yeah, vaccine rollout started happening in India, which is good. It is also one of the cheapest in the world, because India is producing as well more than 60 to 70% of vaccines in the world, which is in a way is good for a massive population like India. So it is happening. People are now getting, anyone who is older than 45 is eligible to get their vaccines. Starting from May 1st, anyone who is older than 18 will be eligible to get their vaccines. So it is happening, and which is at least a good news. Let's hope that after that, things will get back to normal for us.
Yeah, crazy times. So let's focus in on the impact to you personally in your business. Yeah. So give us an idea how big your business was before the COVID lockdowns, and then take us through what happened over time.
So I'll say that I was in travel and tourism. We were doing like some of the nice experiences around North India. We were doing bike trips or biking holidays, cycling holidays, and city cycle tours in New Delhi and around Delhi. It was going really good. One of the best business models to have, known as Delhi Bicycle, and we were doing around 500 to 600 people every month in and around Delhi. And obviously, we never saw something like this coming. But we started having these cancellations starting from December. So we started getting these emails and, hey, we are canceling our trip because of COVID. So we started having these impacts starting from December. But even before December, one of the things which started impacting us in the last few years is pollution. Because I don't know if you're aware about it, but this pollution across New Delhi and India is one of the city pollution is one of the biggest in the world right now, which we start getting every winter, starting from October and November. So we start getting that as well. It was already impacting us in a really big way. And then this COVID was like a final nail in the coffin, right? So that's what happened with COVID. And we started getting these massive cancellations starting from Jan. And you know what? On one of the days in March 14th, we had one of our biggest trips, around 100 people from Germany. And we got that massive cancellation. And after that cancellation, that was our last trip / cancellation, which happened on that day, which was a big shock for us. Slowly, what happened is, like, we went in lockdown in the next 5 to 6 days. We started closing our office from March 14th. And what happened is that slowly it started impacting my team. We were a team of around 20 people based in New Delhi, including our tour leaders, the co-guides, the helpers, the office staff, everyone. So, and this is just like I'm telling the story of one of the, humble tour companies based in New Delhi. So, and it started impacting my team. It started impacting everyone around us. We were forced to close down our office by May or June, May last week or June first week. So finally, we closed our office. We were forced to shut it because obviously we cannot afford to pay the rents. Somehow, I managed as long as I can to pay the co-guides and helpers in my team because they come from the lowest strata of economy in our country, from the smallest of the villages and the tribal areas you can imagine. So I tried my best to help them as long as I can, and things slowly started impacting at that level as well, where we were not even able to afford even $100 a month to give them um, in terms of our financial models. It was all empty. It was all like our bank accounts were seized because we were not able to have the minimum balance, and that's how things started impacting us in a really bad way. And by July or August, we kind of lost the hope that we are gonna again start or do something like that. Uh, but slowly things started coming back to life starting from October, and people from the embassies based in India, they started coming back on our tours, and we started doing trips outside Delhi in a safe way because countryside is still safer than the city areas. And then people started also showing up for the city tours. Obviously, the numbers were going down, and finally, there was a day in Delhi when we had just 100 infections or in a day. So we thought that things will get back to normal, and hence we started working on some new ventures, started doing some new experiments with domestic travelers because we were not sure that when international travelers will start coming back to India. But yes, the second wave is now hitting us even harder. So that's how team was able to survive or kind of manage the COVID first wave.
So what's your status? Are there any tours right now, or are you pretty much shut down for the time being?
It's zero.
Zero. Yeah.
Yeah. It was zero from March 20 to September 21, and between September and March again, between September and March, September 2020 to March 21, we did around 100 people in those many months. But yeah, that's it. And again, back to zero.
Wow. Yeah, and that's. I mean, I'm sure this is impacting businesses obviously throughout India, and I mean, it's.
Yeah.
So has
I cannot like.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was saying that I cannot even explain that how. So this is a position of a tourism company who is based in New Delhi, right? So at least I'm able to reach out to people, raise my voice, and do these things. But there are people in smaller towns and smaller cities. India, we have more than 3,000 towns and cities, and there are numbers of touristic spots which people still need to see and visit. And the tour guides working over there, they are like literally crying. They don't have money. They are working like daily laborers. They are going and doing any odd job which they can find. Because somehow they have to sustain their families because they don't know anything else than this. They don't know anything else in tourism. They don't know anything else in stories. And obviously, there's no government support. People are not getting any direct benefits into their bank accounts. So people are just doing any odd job which they can find.
What kind of impact do you think this is going to have, long term on India? Did you foresee this? Assuming that things get back to more of a closer to normal situation in the next few months, do you foresee India bouncing back, or do you think there's certain things that are going to take quite a while to come back to how they were?
I will say that see, what is happening on tourism on ground is that the supply chains are gone, right? There are a lot of companies, they already shut down their doors permanently. There are a lot of big DMCs, even I know, and they are not working anymore. There are a lot of people who used to work in these companies because company at the end is all about people. So there are a lot of people who used to work in these companies, but they are not working. They're in completely different fields. So even to get back to the normal rate, which we used to have in the late 2019 or early 2020, I think it will take at least 3 to 4 years to get back to even those normal rates of people, of number, volume, money, whatever. So the recovery rate is going to be a bit slow, and because a lot of people did a permanent exit, so it is going to impact the industry in long run, I think.
Yeah, it's the same way in the States. We're dealing with things like that. As you see, I think with a lot of businesses being impacted, negatively going out of business, there are going to be different opportunities that do reveal themselves to entrepreneurs. But
Right.
It's going to be rough either way you look at it going forward the next couple of years.
That's
One of the,
true.
one thing that I did want to ask you about, because Anthony brought it up, talking about education in India, and with the lockdowns, and I'm assuming schools were mostly shut down, that
Yeah.
children have really been unable to do much remote learning because they don't have the data plans or the cell phones to do so. Can you give us some perspective on that?
Yeah, that's also a really topic or an area where we have the greatest devastations, I will say. Education suffered a lot in India. Um, it is because a lot of people, they went from the classes to the online mode. But obviously, India is, again, as I said, India is not its 10 or 20 big cities. India is 3,000 small cities and towns and more than 600,000 villages. And I'm talking about the people of these towns and these villages and the kids of these towns and these villages. Um, there is data that more than 30% of the kids dropped out from the schools permanently,
Wow.
and they are not going to go back to the schools even if they start again. Because again, they are now helping their parents to earn the livelihood and all these things. The kids who were able to sustain, because education is a really close topic to the heart of the parents in India, and they are spending really good money. They are, a lot of time they end up spending more than 30% of their salaries on their kids' monthly tuitions and education fees. So education is a really big thing, especially with the middle class in India. But again, there was an issue that not everyone is connected with technology, and even if they are connected with technology, they are not able to have these online classes and all these things. So a lot of the places, teachers, what they did is they started sending assignments based on WhatsApp and started sending voice notes on WhatsApp. But then it is really hard to get the results from the student side. Not everyone is going to respond. And another thing is, not everyone is having smartphones. And even if
Mm-hmm.
everyone is having smartphone, and if there are three kids in a household, and three of them are in three different classes or three different levels, it's hard for them to have that one device, and three of them can study at the same point of time, because usually the classes are going at the same point of time. Um, Apart from this, I saw from my personal experience that data and internet is cheapest in the world right now in India. But still, it was hard for these parents to buy a plan which is like 1.5 GB or 2 GB per day, because even that was expensive for these parents. So, and also at the same point in time, when they're losing their income, when they're losing their money because of this whole
Mm-hmm.
pandemic situation. So education at large. So again, I'm not talking about these 10, 20 big cities where we have amazing schools, really nice infrastructure, we have high-speed internet. Um, I'm talking about these small 3,000 towns and villages and the kids over there. That how they are now out of the grid of this education, and how it is going to impact India in long term. That whatever we lost, for the last 1 year in terms of education, the kids are, a lot of them are not going to go back to the schools. So it is going to impact in a really big way.
That's extremely sad, and I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there, talking about. I mean, this is really generationally. You're saying 1 in 3 kids is not going to go back from these villages.
Yeah.
Imagine the. I hate to put it this way, but imagine because it's resource. People are resources. People have ideas, and they bring those ideas forward, and to have a third of those people not go forward with education, and maybe those, I'm sure they would still contribute to life going forward in some way, but not being able to get into the highest levels of the economy and work.
Right.
It's definitely detrimental, for sure. Very sad.
It is like one of the examples which I was thinking is that, what happens is like when these kids who were especially walking with these migrant laborers, there were thousands and thousands of kids who were walking and running and cycling with these migrant labor. I was just thinking one simple thing, that, hey, what is going to happen to these kids? What kind of traumas they are going to go through, that when they are going to see that their parents are not able to even afford, and they're just walking in a really the worst condition, and then they see these police guys coming up with their batons and beating these guys for not wearing masks. So what is going to happen with the confidence level with these kids? Are they ever going to be an asset to the nation? Or they're just going to be a liability who will always going to, stay in a trauma and not being able to contribute anything in a way? So in a way, we are wasting our resources.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big problem worldwide with situations like this. I know in the U.S., I mean, there's been a lot of high school aged kids, between the ages of, I don't know, 13 to 18, that essentially they've dropped out of school because they had to go to work. I mean, maybe one of their parents lost their job and they were able to get a job and just to support their family. So rather than stay home and do the online learning, they
Wow.
just dropped out and started working. So I mean, this is something that's going to be something to look at, and definitely long-term impacts worldwide. But yeah, so I did want to ask you to, if you could share your business, with with my audience here, let them know if anyone does travel to India, how they can use your tourism services, or forward on to a friend who's traveling. So plug away.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone is traveling to India, they can find me on social media and my blog known as hrthetraveler.com, or I have this really amazing website known as Delhi Bicycle, DELHIBYCYCLE.com, or social media handle on Instagram is hrthetraveler. So I'm someone who is really fascinated by the stories of India, and that's what I do. I share these stories with the people, and I'm also planning to start these online storytelling sessions about India with one topic every week. And I'll post it on my blog, hrthetraveler.com, details as well over there. So that's like one of the ways through which I'm trying to, generate some financial backup again, and help my team to stand back to its ground. So that's what the plan is, to start again. Let's see how this will turn around for us.
That made me think of a question. So when you're marketing your tourism, what typically is your most effective marketing? Is it, I don't know if there's a lot of, like online marketing in India right now, or is it word of mouth that most people find you, or is it, some other form of marketing?
So with Daily Bicycle, what helped us is word of mouth advertisement, because the kind of trust and the kind of experience which we designed was one of the most unique experience in the world. And I'm telling you, John, if you even see a 2-minute video of our Old Delhi cycle tour, it's one of the most fascinating things even to see, and to experience that for 4 hours in the middle of Old Delhi. It's the organized chaos in the world. So the kind of experience which we designed, and it was one of the first experiences in the world to design something like this in the middle of the crowd. It's like you have the feeling of being James Bond and doing all these things, adventure in a city. Yeah. So word of mouth helped us a lot. Online platforms like TripAdvisor helped us a lot. And we became a big hit between the embassies in New Delhi. So the word started going to all these countries outside. We even hosted the Prime Minister of Netherlands. In fact, in 2018, I hosted the CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, on my tour.
Really?
Yeah.
I just heard him interviewed on another podcast a couple of weeks ago. That's funny. Yeah.
Oh gosh, you could have asked him about his Old Delhi tour. So that's how things started working for us, and this is one of the really amazing and unique concept which we designed, and that's why it's a kind of dream for me and for my team, and that's why I want to make it stand again at any cost, and we are trying our best.
That's very cool. And I'm sure with that attitude, and with the body of work and success that you've had, and people talking about your business, I'm sure that you will make it through this and come out stronger on the other end.
For sure, John. Thanks for this.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing about yourself, about India, and I think this has been eye-opening for me, and I've learned a lot, and I know my audience has too. And I'd love to have you back on in a few months or a year or so, and we can talk about what's new, and hopefully we can have this whole COVID thing behind us by then.
Yes, hopefully. It's getting, with the second wave in India, it's getting really bad for us, but still hopeful. And thank you for having me over here, and hope to host you someday as well in India.
That would be amazing. All right. Thank you. Hope you all enjoyed that interview on Finding Freedom. Another awesome guest. And hopefully you guys also have subscribed to the Lions of Liberty podcast, and you're getting all 3 of our unique shows in your little listening device delivered to your ears. If you haven't, please do that. Just go to your app, you know how to do it, and subscribe. You can also leave us a 5-star review and a nice comment. We would prefer if you did it on Apple Podcasts, but anywhere you can on the internet, please leave us a positive comment. Also, if you want to support us, we would love that too. Please go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. You can support us for as little as a couple bucks, or if you get in at a higher level, you get merchandise and access to us, and all the way up to you can advertise on the show or get to even produce a show. So check it all out, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please consider checking out the Lions of Liberty store, where we have some awesome t-shirts. We have a Taxation is Death t-shirt with an awesome design. We have a Wax On, Tax Off t-shirt. And we're always coming up with new ideas and adding new t-shirt designs to the store. Check that out at lionsofliberty.store. And if you're in the Pride, you get a discount on anything you buy in the store. So you do both of those things and you win. That's all I got, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.